Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Wednesday afternoon here on Kobold Press's channel. We're back for Kobold Chats, and I have a very special guest today, one that I'm sure you've heard of before. Maybe you've seen a little name here or there, but I'm very excited for my first time to get down to chance to get to sit down and chat with Richard Green about the upcoming Kickstarter for Southlands. Hey, Richard.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm really good. I'm excited to talk about this because we're going to have another little announcement. So I've been having a chance to kind of dive into the world of Southlands over the last few weeks as this Kickstarter has launched, and we've been working towards maybe an actual play. And so I'm really excited to hear from you about all the things that we might be able to expect out of this book.
Okay, so this is like... I mostly worked on the world book, so there are 3 books as part of the Kickstarter. So there is the original Southlands was 1 book, which was a campaign setting for Pathfinder 5 years ago, and we now have a world book, which will be, I think, probably as long as the original campaign setting book was.
Wow!
And then a player's guide, a softcover player's guide with new races and subclasses and player options, and then also a City of Cats book, which is going to be a gazetteer to Per Bastet, and also a collection of adventures by the legendary Richard Pett, all set in Per Bastet.
So it's going to be it's going to be a lot of content with this Kickstarter. So for everybody at home, if you don't know, guess what? We're launching a Kickstarter for the Southlands setting. But Richard, just in case people have never met you before, you're obviously doing this, but who are you when you're not just writing for kicks?
Okay, so I've been playing D&D quite a long time, but I got started with Kobold Press back in, I think, 2007, 2008. When Wolfgang started his open design patron projects.
Oh, okay.
And these were things where you could sign up to learn how to write an adventure for D&D or a supplement for D&D. And the very first one I signed up for was the 3.5 version of Empire of the Ghouls. As Wolfgang was writing it, he would ask people to chip in with suggestions, and they could chip in on encounters and NPCs and things like that. So I kind of mostly sort of just got involved in the chat of that, didn't really write anything for that. But then the next project was a book called 6 Arabian Nights, which I actually have here.
Oh.
Which is this book. So this is probably the first ever published Southlands product from Kobold Press. And this is set in the city of Seawall. Which is in the Nurian deserts in the top bit of the Southlands. And this is six adventures and then a gazetteer to the city. And I actually have my first ever very, very tiny credit in a Kobold Press book in 6 Arabian Nights, where I wrote up one of the kind of cafes in one of the coffee shops in Seawall. So that was kind of how I got started. And then I went on to write more and more things here and there.
Right.
Until I worked on the 4E Midgard bestiary. And that was probably about maybe 8-9 years ago. And then I did quite a lot of design on the Midgard World Book. And then Empire of the Ghouls. And now Southlands. And Southlands is by far away the biggest thing I've done. I started off with a contract for 3 chapters, and I ended up writing 8 out of the 11 chapters. It's always the way with Kobold Press projects. You kind of say, "Oh yeah, I'll do that," and then, "Oh, do you want to do the next bit?" Okay, all right.
A little bit more there. A little bit more there.
It's nice.
Okay.
Keep going, and so I ended up writing 8 out of the 11 chapters of the World Book, and then the other 3 are written by Kelly Paulick, Bashir Goes, and Wolfgang.
So. Obviously you're writing it, but there's got to be a big old process to that. Like 8 chapters just don't appear out of thin air. So what is the process looked a little bit like as you've been working on this without giving us too many spoilers?
Sure, I'll try. You have to tell me if I'm saying things I shouldn't be saying.
I was about to say, Amanda, you're in chat, right? You tell us if we're saying things we shouldn't be saying.
So the starting process was to take the original campaign setting and then to kind of build on everything that was there.
Right.
Move the timeline on 10 years to bring it in line with the world book. And I had a good head start for that because I actually did the Southlands chapter in the world book. So I'd already brought some of the areas in the northern part of the Southlands forward 10 years, some of the events that had happened in those parts of the Southland. So the return of the Minotaur Lost Fleet, some of the stuff that had happened with the Nurians and the Dragon Empire,
right.
that was kind of developed a bit in that book, and the big slave revolt on Shibai. So those things I'd already kind of come up with, and so it was really what I then was going to do to the other places. And when the way things were set up in the original Southlands book and in all Kobold books usually is, I think Wolfgang refers to stacking up kegs of dynamite when you're writing setting material. So there's always, nations sort of teetering on the brink of war. Rulers are about to be deposed. Someone's going to assassinate somebody. So when you're advancing the timeline 10 years, you have to look and think, well, what is the logical conclusion of this? But
right.
then you kind of want to then try and leave things teetering on the brink again. So you don't want to resolve the plot line and leave nothing there. So all of the kind of events that have happened in the last 10 years, hopefully, have created a whole load of new adventure hooks, or have kind of extended the adventure hooks that were already there. So all of the big sort of threats in the setting, like the Green Walker in the jungles of Kush, that is still very much a threat. And things like the Tosculi, the bug people, they've got worse. They've kind of expanded their territory. And there's a plot perhaps to bring them all together into one big sort of conclave of hives that will cause no end of trouble if that happens.
I was going to say, there's no doom there.
Yeah. So there's lots of things happening in the setting, which the idea was to kind of bring it up to date, change everything so it's fully compatible with 5th edition, and then also to kind of create as many new places for characters to go and explore, and new adventure hooks, and new characters, and new stuff so that anyone who's had the earlier book will still get a tremendous amount of value out of this, and people who haven't will be able to kind of hit the ground running really when they read it, and they should hopefully get loads of ideas for new adventures and games to run.
Right. Okay. Very cool. So I love this. Okay. I love this idea. In my headcanon, I now see Wolfgang around an empty table, and all he does is write on little sticky notes all of the conflicting things that he wants to go down to start this. So without giving too much away, can you go deeper into that? Like, what are some of the things that we can expect? You mentioned a few things there, but maybe what's new or like extra? Okay. Because it seems like there's a lot right now that's being based off of, or we're building out from some content we already have, but there's got to be new stuff, right?
There's a lot of brand new stuff. So I think probably there's about, I would say around 50 plus new adventure sites. Or what I found when I was looking at the chapters, there were lots and lots of things marked on the map that actually didn't have any kind of description. So there'd be cities, there'd be ruins. So my starting point was quite often, right, well, what is this? What is this ruin? But it's got an interesting name, but who lives there? What happens there? And kind of that. And then also adding a whole load of new locations to the map. So that was a lot of fun. And that's one of the big things that people can expect. I think also there's a whole new chapter on the Knoll lands, which Bashir's done. So that's a big expansion of the Knolls, which I think were maybe 2.5 pages before. And then at Tosculi, there's a lot more on them. So some of the hives that hadn't been written up before have been written up. And there's just more expansion on their plots and what they're up to. So I think a lot of things have kind of been brought maybe a bit more into focus and just provided a lot more new information. There's also a load of new city maps. So I've been drawing those. I've still got a few more to draw, and then they will be turned from my crude sketches into beautiful works of art by professional cartographers. But I do like doing them. So I've been doing some of those. So some of the cities that didn't have maps before will have maps, which is great.
That's really cool.
And as I say, lots of new characters, and there'll be tons of new art as well that Mark's team of some absolutely brilliant artists that they've got working on the book.
Yeah, they mentioned last week, Amanda dropped it in chat here, but they were talking about the Tusculi, the like insect humanoids, and you know, for your diabolical bug person, I feel like there's been a lot of interest for these diabolical bug people, so I'm very excited to see just in general what comes of that when it drops and people start playing, because.
Yeah, I think they've sort of been I think they're kind of, there's more emphasis on them as a threat, and their kind of territory on the map has been expanded. So each hive has kind of grown in area. They've taken new territory, and their kind of demon herald is kind of up to no good, kind of trying to get them all to work together for once. So that'll be an interesting sort of big plot line. If you want, you can run a whole campaign basically around stopping them from consuming their way through the Southlands and enslaving everybody and eating everybody. So yeah,
the eating part, there's something really disturbing about.
Yeah, they are quite disturbing. You can play one though. You can play a sort of lovable hiveless,
like a lovable hiveless version.
I don't think they're particularly lovable either, but. And there were some really cool living items that were in the original book that I've converted to 5th edition, so you can graft wings and antennae and stuff like that. And you don't even have to be a Tusculi to do it.
I suppose you could just be an undercover bug.
Yeah.
That's really neat. Man, I have so many questions because, like I said, I'm just starting to really dive really deep into the Midgard lore. And so, obviously, Southlands is at the forefront of that. And so, is there like a particular area or a part of the Southlands or something that you're writing that you're just really particularly excited about? That's really got you stoked?
Well, there's quite a few, because I ended up doing like nearly all of the regional chapters. There are things in each one. So I do really like the Green Walker. Yeah. I think the kind of sort of alien plant monster from another dimension that's kind of arrived and is kind of causing the jungle to grow, and he's kind of using his tendril puppets to kind of like infect people, and he's sort of basically planting sleeper agents throughout the neighboring kingdoms, and the Narembeki are having to kind of keep trying to burn the jungle back. But some of the Narembeki are tendril puppets, so they're not really trying that hard to burn the
right. Yeah.
So that's really fun. And one of the things that's new in this book is that the Green Walker was originally summoned by mistake by some druids who. I was
about to say this seems like a druid mishap in full form.
They made a terrible mistake, summoned the wrong kind of plant creature, and ended up causing all of this. And so they, about sort of 300-400 years ago, all of these druids had to kind of sacrifice themselves to kind of slow the growth of the Green Walker down. And in the new version of Southlands, there are some druids who have kind of returned to Kush, who believe they may have this sort of they may be able to find a way of stopping the Green Walker, or at least kind of slowing it down for good. So I think I noticed on one of the tweet cards that came up for this chat, there was a character on there. There was a female druid with a staff with flowers. So that is Ufoma, who's the leader of these druids, and she's the head of the Circle of Orchids, and she's been getting weird dreams from a sleeping titan that may or may not provide clues to how the Green Walker can be stopped. So she has returned to the jungle with some of her allies, and that's a group of characters. And I think in the player's guide there'll be a subclass for the Circle of Orchids, and you can join the Circle of Orchids and. And
my little druid heart just pitter-pattered. Yeah. Yeah. And for the record, chat, I'm just going to say druids never mess up. They just rebalance things. There is no such thing as a mistake or a problem. Exactly. It's just a rebalancing of nature. Yeah. Druids never make mistakes. Quote me on that. Very cool. I was trying to think. Okay, so what else? I mean, you've been working on this for many months. I'm gonna assume this has not been like a very short process.
Yeah, more than a year, I think. Yeah, so I did the High Jungles chapter first. I did also in that chapter is the flying city of Edvall, which is in fact that's one of the cities that I drew because it's kind of 7 floating rock islands in the sky, orbiting a waterfall that flows from the Well of Erd through and lands on the Black Lotus Mesa, and this is actually the source of the Nurian River. And where it lands on the mesa, all sorts of weird stuff happens. So these wizards from Sikkim who arrived in a kind of flying city crashed into the mesa, and then they kind of used magic to raise some of the rocks back up to create their flying city.
So it's like flying ruins of a flying city.
Yeah, effectively. Yeah. Well, it's kind of flying hunks of rock that they've then built magnificent towers on. Wow. So I thought this was a good one to draw an actual 3D cross-section type map rather than an overhead map, so you can see the different levels of the islands and how they're all connected together by these bridges and stuff. But I think that's a really cool place. And they use this magic aeromancy, which I think, again, is going to be in the player's guide.
Yes,
which allows you to kind of use this magical water from the river to cast spells. So that was really fun. And then lots of new, as I say, lots of new tombs and ruins and things like that I kind of wrote up. And what else? There's a big lake in the middle of the abandoned lands called Lake Debary. And at the bottom of that lake, there is a ruined married city. And there is also a portal to the elemental plane of water. And above that, on that lake, there is a floating town called Manayo. And the people in Manayo have been there for like thousands of years. But 3,000 years ago, this terrible creature called the Lookwater came through the portal from the plane of water and started destroying the city and destroying the married city. So one of the Titans managed to put this creature to sleep. But again, you've got a sleeping creature on the bottom of the lake above the portal, but the creature is kind of starting to stir.
Right, of course, nothing stays asleep forever.
So that's another kind of interesting adventure location. But if you go there, you have to be careful that you don't wake the creature up by mistake.
So would you say that you are using a lot of this, or at least Genesis point was a lot of the old material from the old Southlands material. Did we go back and use all of it? Was it kind of a pick and choosing process? What did that look like as you went back and tried to now revive a lot of things?
I think pretty much everything is there, but there are a lot of a lot of brand new locations, and there are also locations that were there but they weren't really described. So one of the places that wasn't really described that's now been developed was a city called Inkabut, which actually was really only added properly to the map with the world book, and previously it was just marked on, I think, as Shrine of the Spider Prophet. And that has now been properly mapped, and I've written all the descriptions for it, and this coincides with the Spider Prophet of the Dominion of the Windlords having some visions which said that outsiders would be allowed into the Dominion as long as they only came to this city and traded in this city. It's allowed us to create a kind of Marrakesh Fez-like city on that northern bit of coastland of the Dominion of the Windlords, where you can experience lots of encounters with the Djinborn and kind of lots of interesting characters.
I got a sneak peek at the player's guide last night, and I love the Djinborn. I am so excited. That's all I can say about that. That's to not spoil too much, but just know Dot loves the Djinborn. I think they're amazing.
Great. Yeah, they're really fun. I mean, all that genie stuff is great fun, and it's nice to have character options where you could sort of play a genior-like character in it. It'd be balanced and
yeah, and playable, you know.
Yeah, and then lots of other sort of adventure sites that we've added in. So I wrote up some of the characters in Tome of Beast 2. So there's a Fey Lord in there that I've written about his castle in one of the deserts. I've written about an infernal fortress on the coast of the Windlord's lands. Part of the city of Ramagani, which has been corrupted by void cultists. So lots of new places. There's also, for people who a long time ago were long-time fans of Midgard, who are familiar with an adventure for 4th edition called The Lost City, which was always meant to take place in Midgard, but it was always a bit vague about exactly where that was. But actually managed to get that added to the map and write some lore about it and about the sand giants who are trying to unearth its secrets. So this is a buried city in the southern bit of what's called the Ishmael Desert, which is in the northern part of the Southlands. So that was a lot of fun. And then lots of new ley lines have been added to the map.
Okay, I was about to say, my big question was like the map, like, you know.
The map is absolutely amazing. So Anna Meyer has created an absolutely incredible map, and the fact that we have this online version of it, which anyone can use and zoom in on places and use the distance tool, is incredible. So she's extended that map down into the. Well, I think it always was. She'd always done a map of the Southlands, but it hadn't been previously visible online. So
right.
That will be a new map in the book as a poster, and I think with lots of then regional maps throughout the chapters. And this will have all these new locations marked on, and then the new boundaries of things like the Tosculi lands, and some of the Trollkin lands have expanded as well. Mm-hmm. And all the Knoll packs, all their borders are marked. So yeah, lots of new things to discover on there. Which
it feels like it's almost just kind of filling in. It's like it's connecting things that were there before. First off, I want to welcome in. We've been raided, so welcome in, raiders. Thanks for joining us, and thank you, Grant Ellis, for that raid. But we have a question, our first question from chat. Sure. Have we talked about the Orcs in Southlands? The fan-organized play Discord has run stories with Orcs and the White Goddess, and this person just wants some more info. So without, of course, not too much spoilers, but will we see some build-out of the Orcs in the Southlands?
There are some Orcs, yeah. There are some Orcs in... So when the Green Walker was summoned by the Druids, it sort of ripped itself out of the ground, creating an enormous hole. This also destroyed a dwarven city, and the dwarves then had to flee sort of to the southwest to a place called Sebek Sabor. But this great crevasse, this hole in the ground, is home to a group of Orcs. So there's some description there about how they live really and their kind of society. They're actually in the Creature Codex, I think. They're described in there. So we had kind of 5e versions of them, but there's a bit more information about how they operate in the Southlands. Okay. But yeah, that's the only place there are Orcs. There are also White Orcs in the main bit of Midgard. But yeah. Right. There aren't that many Orcs in Midgard altogether, but there are some in the Southlands.
That's so interesting. My little heart fluttered again, the idea of a giant, massive tree, and then everybody's living in the hole that's left behind. I'm so here for that. I love that. Let's see. Yeah, so Creature Codex can be grabbed, actually, on the store, everybody. Go check it out. Actually, every piece that we've talked about, the Kickstarter, of course, is not live, but the other books, we talked about Tome 2, which we dropped a link up above. And for everybody... because Kobold Press is awesome, we have a Midgard map, an interactive Midgard map online that is totally free. So I've been dropping that in chat too. If you're questioning what that link is, you can go check that out and start peeking at Southlands. I was digging there actually just last night. So, all right. Okay. So I say what else, but I feel like maybe we could open up to chat a little bit. We're here with one of the writers who has written 8 chapters, bare minimum, along with clearly like 1,000 other things for this upcoming Southlands Kickstarter. If you have questions for Richard, toss them in chat and I will pass them along to him. But while we wait for some of those to come through, we can actually talk about an exciting thing that's coming to the channel starting on the 9th of December. We are going to be doing an actual play of City of Cats. We have a cast, we have an incredible GM, and we'll be doing it right after the Kobold chat. So you can come in, chat with us about Southlands, and then stay afterwards for a little live stream play of what's actually going to be going down. I actually think I have a really awesome picture of a City of Cats. There you go. I'll show that to you, because I can show you that artwork. I've been approved. So there's the front cover of that piece. I can say that we're Noir Enigma is going to be joining us as our GM. I'll be at the table alongside Trooper SJP. Oh my gosh, my brain just died. Who else is at the table with us? I'm going to give you everybody's links so that I don't mess that up. Because y'all know I will. Y'all know I will. Okay, here we go. So I'll be at the table with Trooper SJP, Marcus, who is Best Kind of Worse. Marcus works for Gen Con, and Pro Restarter as well. So we've got 4 players and an incredible GM, and we're going to be bringing some of, hopefully all of us will be bringing to life at least a piece of our player's guide under Southlands. You want me to tell you about my character? Is it too spoilerific if I tell you early, Amanda? I mean, like I said, I kind of gave a spoiler away just a second ago, so I will be playing a Djinborn. There is zero question about that. Of course, I thought I was going to play a catfolk, but I read the description for the Djinborn and was just really, really drawn to it. So that's all I could say. That's all I'm going to spoil. I thought maybe I'd come on next week and stay after our chat and actually build my character live. I can't give you too much of a sneak peek, but we could do a character building live. So maybe we'll do that and save it for next week. You can't have everything this week, Amanda. You can't have it all. You can't have your kobold cake and eat it too. No, so I'll stick around next week. That'll be fun. We'll do a character building next week and you can get a sneak preview of the character I'll be playing for that. I don't want to spoil my Djinborn voice because it's a very specific kind of Djinborn. I'm very excited. A little soothsayery, little kind of old, crotchety old lady for sure. There's gonna be a lot of crotchety old lady in there. So I'm very excited about it. All right. Any questions here? Any questions in chat? I'm just trying to think. Amanda says I can always embarrass them and tell her about her crocodile lady. That's right. You'll get questions about my character later. I can't spoil anything because, again, y'all know I'm going to open my big mouth and I'll be like, here's everything that's in Southlands, and then I'm going to get in trouble. I'm excited about it. We'll be having some more official announcements coming out. You can check out, definitely go check out our social media, because I know Victoria is going to be putting out like individual cast announcements, and as our characters get together, we'll be doing some announcement as to what everybody is playing. But yeah, y'all can't have it all today, because then you won't come back next week. All right, let's see. Yes, it'll be mean if we do that. So, so City of Cats is one of the many pieces that are a part of this. Thank you for that subscription as well. That are a part of this. What are some of the other kind of larger storylines that we can look at expecting, I guess, out of Southlands that you've actually helped write?
Well, I kind of worked on, as I say, I worked on the regional chapters. So each chapter has got, as well as like an update on the timeline. So there's like a number of things that have happened really in the last 10 years.
Okay.
And then there's probably, I would say, each one's got like 4 or 5 adventure hooks.
Okay.
That you can run with when you if you like want to run your campaign and base it in one of the areas. So, but there isn't, I wouldn't say there's like a big storyline sweeping through the whole book. I think Kobold Press tends to avoid those kind of giant world-changing
Hey, I prefer it that way. The idea that I get 5 different hooks as a GM is like the greatest thing to me, because then I'm like, okay, now I got some room to breathe, because you know my characters are going to go way offline of where I want them to go. So like, let's just, yeah, I think that's way more handy. It's more useful.
So there's definitely a plot line around stopping the Green Walker. There are plot lines around stopping the Tosculi. There are various other things going on in so the city of Ramagani, which is this scattered city that runs around the edge of the abandoned lands. It's in a kind of on a diamond-shaped ley line, and each part of the city is separate, and there is a kind of portal that links you to another part of the city. So if you kind of befriend the Ramag, there is a way in which you can travel more rapidly across the continent, because you could move from like one part of the city to another,
right.
From, like the top of the abandoned lands to the bottom. But there are various storylines around how they are trying to get back the bits of the city that have been separated. So they shut a couple of bits off because they were suffering from a terrible arcane plague. And then there's another bit which has fallen to the Void Cultists. So again, there's a plot line around going in there and kind of taking out the Void Cultists and bringing things back. And then in the middle of the Southlands, in the middle of the abandoned lands, there is a place where there are several Titans who are asleep. So the Titans were the rulers of a large part of the Southlands, sort of 3,000 odd years ago. And then they kind of succumbed to a sort of madness. They sort of fought a big war with each other, and a lot of them were killed, or some of them fled over the seas, but some of them are asleep and kind of in stasis. So there is an opportunity to go and either wake them up if you want to.
Yeah, I was about to say, I feel a giant awakening happening in that that prompt.
But also, one of the other things you can do is try and steal their divine sparks. So this is their like godlike power, which in some cases can be found in dungeons or ruins around the Southlands. And there are rules in the first chapter on how you can take on this power, and it can be quite dangerous. But if
I was about to say that's some player's going to push
successfully
that button. I know it.
Then you've got that open to you, and you've got kind of sort of semi-divine abilities.
So really what we're seeing is kind of like a massive open manual for both players, and then of course this one for GMs that just has like prompt after prompt, which, as Amanda pointed out, a million story seeds to let GMs run around screaming happily, which I completely agree with. So we do have some questions in chat. Brian wants to know, are we getting new options for sand ships?
Oh, that's a good question. I haven't done any new options for sand ships. That's not to say that's not in the stretch goals that I don't know about. But that would be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say,
cool.
I know nothing of sand ships, and I was sold just reading your questions. So
the sand ships are used by the Jimborn and by a lot of the desert people to travel around. So they kind of skim across the top of the sands, and they are used to kind of get around the trade routes quickly.
Right.
There is one Jimborn character in the book actually who has a sand ship that he has 3 sand ships that he keeps in a bottle. So when he gets to because the Jimborn have to follow these kind of ancient routes around the desert. So when he gets to the stone desert, which is too rocky to use a sand ship, he has to put his sand ships into his magic bottle, and then they go on foot or on camels for the bit around the stone desert, and then when they come back out again, they can tip the sand ships back out of the bottle and head off again.
Cool. That's super cool. Now I'm like, okay, how does my Jimborn ride us in?
You should go and lobby your DM for a sand ship in a bottle. That's what I would do. Definitely.
That's very cool. Well, speaking of what you would do, next question up from chat. Grammy wants to know, Richard, if you were going to run a campaign in Southlands, what hooks/areas would you use?
Oh, that's such a good question. I don't. Yeah, well, I'm actually running a campaign in Per Bastet at the moment, so I'm running a City of Cats campaign. So I started with Cat and Mouse, and then we did the Tomb of Tiberesh, which is a kind of traditional trap-filled dungeon just on the outskirts of the city. And then we did. I don't know if you'll be doing this as part of your streamed campaign, so I don't want to give too much away. But Richard Pett has written these adventures called Three Little Pigs, which take place on this weird festival of the pigs, where three young women are turned into pigs by an evil magician, and their father's trying to get them back. And your mission as adventurers is to recover these three daughters who've been turned into pigs before they get eaten on the Festival of the Pigs. And it is hilarious. There's an ostrich chase and all sorts of stuff in it.
That's amazing.
So I've done those, and then I'm currently running Grimalkin, and then I think I've got an opportunity then to kind of go elsewhere in the Southlands. So I really like the Minotaur, all the Minotaur ruins of like Roshgazi and Sindas,
yep,
and Dralhu and Dorada. So those are really interesting places. Lots of kind of fun ruins to explore, and all this weird thing where you have these Minotaur labyrinths that kind of connect to each other through a sort of labyrinth space. And one of the options in the player's guide is a subclass for wizards, which is mostly aimed at Minotaurs, but sometimes they teach to other people, and that allows you to use this labyrinth magic and travel through these labyrinths and call things forward from the labyrinths. So that northern part is really interesting, but also I do really like the living jungle, and I do really like all the abandoned lands, and the fact that you've got all these kind of weird magic left over by the Titans that's all gone a bit wrong. Right. The ley lines are broken, and you get kind of freak stuff, strange dinosaurs popping up, and kind of void cultists and all those sorts of things.
Right.
So there's a lot of different places. I think if you like pulp type adventures, there's a lot of options, particularly in like the abandoned lands, and in other bits of the sort of southern part of the continent.
Okay. So somebody's actually asking, because you were talking about the Titans, right? We had a question. I'll make sure I get this one. So what's been going on? I'm gonna botch these names. Still learning. Forgive. What's been going on with Gamka and the Titan ruler of Omphia?
Omphia.
Yeah, I got it right. Okay.
So he kind of came back. Yeah, he came back like 1 year before the sort of timeline of the original Southlands book. So he's had like 10 years on the throne. Well, things have kind of been getting worse there, really. So mostly I've made things worse in all of these countries. So he has an advisor who is I don't think he realizes this, but he has an advisor who's a Rakshasa whose interests are not really his. So he is kind of steering Gamka towards more and more sort of acts of savagery and evil. And as he's doing that, there is a kind of a bit of a rebellion kind of starting to rise up amongst the people of On Fire, who, although they're kind of very loyal to their Titan, they can't really kind of allow themselves to all be chucked into lion pits and kind of chased around for his entertainment. So there is a kind of revolutionary movement that's starting to build up to kind of, and I think a reckoning. So again, this is another campaign that you could run. If you want to run something in that region, you could have characters who either belong to the sort of rebels or they could belong to the oppressors.
Right, the oppressor. Interesting.
Yeah. But I think he's probably going to come to a sticky end. He has his spark. He has to wear his spark as a sort of, I think he wears it as a pendant. So there is an option to, if you can defeat him, and you could maybe seize his divine power from him.
Okay.
But I think perhaps you'd need to be at quite a high level, I think, to kind of take him on. He's quite tough.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So a high level.
But he's probably the only one. I would say he's one of the only ones that's kind of active. The others a lot of them are asleep. Some of them are over on the islands. So the kind of cocooned ones, you've got this whole thing around: is it a good idea to wake them up or not? And then there are one or two on the islands that you can have some. You can kind of. I think there's one that you can go and you can encounter, and he will give you something to do. So there are lots of these kind of characters have got kind of missions that I try when I write stuff to always, if I create a character or a place or something, to always think, well, what's the DM going to do with this? Mm-hmm. Can I put a little adventure hook in there? That it's got to be to try and make things as playable as possible. That's that's the idea. So what I've tried to make everything as
I mean,
hopefully you read it and you'll kind of end up thinking, oh, I could do this or I could do that.
I think I definitely think, I mean, I can see that, like, as a GM, and I'm hearing you talk about it, I'm like, okay, you're thinking about it from how best to, like, create story out of this, and how best to, like, make campaigns, and to, like, build your own kind of modular thing in and itself, which I think is way more useful than, like, here's your storyline, make this happen.
Yeah, and the other thing I think is just that even parts of the text before that didn't really have, maybe necessarily have Pathfinder mechanics, my editor has been very kind of like, we need to make this playable. Can we put mechanics here? So in a lot of places there are, it's really easy to kind of, you know, this character's defined. They've got some extra abilities. There'll be things like, you know, you can use this the stat block for a lich, but add this, and this, and that represents this character. So it kind of mixes things up a bit and makes it like really, I think, a bit more interesting for the DM to kind of challenge the players. And there's lots of, as I say, lots of 5e stuff running through it. It's,
right.
I think it will really help people kind of make, you know, write their adventures and run adventures here.
Yeah, I'm laughing at Amanda. She got banned in chat for spamming things. But people have been talking about the Sashes, which I think is really interesting. Is there anything of note? I'm very fond of Rakshasas. I had, like, in my in the city setting I wrote, which I self-published, the Rakshasas play a very big role in it. So I'm pleased that there are some Rakshasas in here. There's a kingdom called Khazara, which is ruled by this guy called the Saffron Raja, who is a Rakshasa, greater Rakshasa, and he has a kind of whole kingdom. And there's a whole bit where if you're brave enough, you can go and visit him. He has some stuff to offer, but he is also quite a dangerous character. I was about to say, I can't imagine he's a very open fellow.
and we've kind of I've written some new like lair actions and regional effects for him and everything to kind of bring him to life. So if you want to confront him, you can, but it's pretty dangerous. But he's definitely up to no good. So that kingdom Khazara on the eastern coast is somewhere to steer clear of unless you want to cause a bit of trouble.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, but there are a few Rakshasas dotted around. So yeah, definitely, I couldn't really not have them there.
Kind of get in with that. Chad, I remind you, now's a great time for questions as we are in the latter half of this. So if you're gonna ask, now's a good time for that. But as you said at the top, this is not the only thing that you are like writing or have written for Kobold Press. In fact, Empire of Ghouls is available right now. You want to talk a little bit maybe about that, just for funsies, because it's part of our current ongoing Kickstarter, everybody. I'm going to drop that link for that. Anything you want to add about that while people come up with more questions?
Yeah, sure. So that came out earlier this year. I worked on that. That was a big project I worked on before Southlands. And I wrote the overall outline for the adventure. And then I wrote Chapter 2 and Chapter 6. And then I went back and wrote a lot of the Gazetteer stuff. So that was nice because that was going back to the very first project that I got involved with Kobold Press. And I've been running that campaign for my home group. So we've kind of just finished Chapter 2, which is the first chapter that I wrote. I narrowly avoided killing everybody in Castle Orselberg. But they actually, unlike, this is completely unlike my players, they for once had a very sensible tactical plan.
Oh!
So where I thought they were just going to blunder in, raise the alarm and all get wiped out, they actually sort of conducted a kind of surgical strike. I always thought they'd been replaced by doppelgangers because they were behaving in a kind of completely
right, yeah. That's the moment you really have to raise your red flags as a GM. It's like they're not making stupid decisions.
Yeah. So we've done that bit, which takes place in the in a kind of vampire and ghoul conquered lands of Krakovar, and they're about to now go sailing over the ocean to the Northlands. So there's a whole chapter up there, and then the fourth chapter, which I'm really looking forward to running, is in the Southlands, and that is in Seawall. So that a lot of that takes place in the necropolis outside Seawall, which was featured in 6 Arabian Nights, and kind of is featured in this book, and I was super keen when I was writing the outline that like Wolfgang was saying, yes, we're going to go to the Northlands, we're going to do this. There's like a big tour of Midgard. I was like, well, we can't miss out Southlands. Can we have a bit where
can we have just a little?
It's a really long way. I'm like, well, we could go there magically, and there's a way to get there. So there's a Southlands chapter, and Kelly wrote that chapter.
Okay,
and she's now written the Nuria chapter of this Southlands book. So she's kind of got to know that area well.
Right,
so
that
she's
area.
writing about that.
So what I'm hearing is they should go play this first, and then like work into this Kickstarter that's coming, because they kind of bump up next to each other. Yeah,
or when they get to this will it'll work really well with the fourth chapter of Edvall the Ghouls will work really well with Southlands, because it all takes place in that desert area, in that sort of Egyptian area. Yeah.
So Amanda claims that you are the King of Ghouls. Is this an acclaimed title or a given one?
I don't know. I'm quite happy to be the King of Ghouls. I got very fond of ghouls writing about them.
I imagine.
And it's very entertaining to write the most gross thing you can possibly write and put it in an adventure. and then sort of think, someone will take it out if it's too gross, and no one did take anything out. So
it's pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
That's, I mean,
it was a lot of fun.
Might as well be paid for your,
exactly
gross ideas, and if everybody wants to go with it,
no
sweat off your back. Very cool. All right, chat. I don't see any more questions, but.
Do you want to show that piece of art of Quadralho?
Yeah, I was just about to pull that up. Let's see. I do have that. You can see him there, but I think I've got the full one that I may just overlay on the screen. Let me grab the full one, because I think you got to see the full spread. You're talking about the one with the Minotaur?
Yeah.
Undead? Yeah. I got that. Let's, how do I want to do that? Oh, I know. So, but as I pull it up, you want to tell people what they're about to see?
Yeah, so this is one of the places that was referenced a few times in like the original Midgard campaign setting and in the world book, and was marked on the map, but nothing really was said about it.
Yeah.
So this was a Minotaur city that was completely leveled by the Dragon Empire when they attacked the sort of northwest part of the Southlands.
Right.
So this has now got a terrible reputation. The Jinborn won't go there. The Tamashek nomads won't go there. Lots of people have died exploring these ruins. There are horrible creatures called sandworms that live underneath the surface of the sands, and these kind of like have they disguise themselves with these sort of giant rib cage like bones on their backs. So that you kind of, as you sort of walk up to the ruins, you'll sort of see something there and think, oh, it's like just a giant rib cage of a dinosaur or a big beast or something. But there's actually a sandworm underneath it, hoping that someone's going to get close to it. There's also Dune Mimics, which are kind of exactly what they sound like. So again,
that's terrifying.
Other creatures that are kind of there ready to engulf you. Brave adventurers or stupid adventurers do keep going to Quadralho, because there is lots of stories that the Minotaurs who hid themselves in the city's spiral labyrinth to avoid being captured by the dragons when they conquered, had loads of treasure. So there are, I think in the artwork you can see some adventurers running away.
Yeah, they're running from it. Yeah, I definitely don't blame them. He is a scary fella.
Yeah, so the Minotaurs sort of shut themselves inside, and a lot of them ended up becoming undead. So there is one of those guys kind of coming out, and I think their leader is a guy called Baltzar, who has got a very powerful Labrys great axe that is like a kind of dragon slaying great axe. So there are things there that are worth the risk, perhaps, of going after.
I see. Well, there's always going to be some risk.
I was really pleased how that art turned out, because I write these briefs and then I'm always amazed that someone can turn a few sentences of words into an amazing picture that is kind of what you imagined in your head. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I love the image. It has a big sense of urgency.
Yeah.
in it. Like you feel the panic of those
Yeah.
those running PCs. Like, you really feel that.
Yeah.
Which just makes, like, that kind of art really just, like, captures you and drags you into the world. You know?
I'm really looking forward to seeing the other chapter openers, because I think that'll be really good.
Yeah. I believe that's chapter 1, right? Chapter 1.
I think so, yeah.
Is that one? Yeah. So another question: are there any areas of Southlands that you wanted to develop but didn't have the space, the time, that you might revisit one day?
Well, there was one. Yeah, there's one area which is the very southern part of the Southlands, where we had to kind of contract it. So, because I think experience from where people were running games before and everything, and kind of suggested this region was like perhaps not the most popular. Right. That was one where I had to reduce like a sort of 12,000 word chapter down to 6,000 words.
Wow!
And so there you end up cutting a lot of the detail out. Mm-hmm. So that is somewhere where I think it would be nice to go back and write about some of those stories again. And there were a few other things that. That I just kind of couldn't fit in. And I've kind of made a note of them because at some point Scott Gable said, we might do a warlock on Southlands. I'm like, okay, I might be writing those for that.
That's really cool. We can always use more warlock content. There's never really like enough for those poor warlocks. They are the brooding emo kids of our fantasy stories always. Okay, so now you've said Dune Mimic. And people are freaking out in chat. So there's clearly some questions around these Dune Mimics. Is that something you came up with?
No, they're in the Tome of Beasts, but in fact, the Tome of Beasts has got some absolutely brilliant desert monsters in there. And I think there's an oasis that is an ooze as well. I didn't put that. I didn't actually put that into the book, but there are a lot of creatures in Tome of Beasts that you could definitely find homes for in the Southlands. Quite a few of them came out of the original Southlands Bestiary for Pathfinder and were converted to for the publication of Tome of Beasts. So, kind of, if you have Tome of Beasts when you're running a game in the Southlands, it will really help you, because there's lots of places you can put those kind of cool creatures in there.
Yeah. Man, and okay, there's so many things here. Chat is like freaking out. But we have another great question, which is, will there be more information on the Red Portal Society in the Southlands book?
There is only a little bit, unless this is going to be a stretch goal. I have a real fondness for the Red Portal Society because I wrote a bit about them in the World Book, and I think we're mostly referring people to the World Book to avoid repeating that information. But a couple of the Warlock articles I've written had a Red Portal wizard as a kind of character who was narrating it. So he goes onto the branches of Yggdrasil, the Whirl Tree, in one of the Warlocks I wrote an article for, and I think he goes to the City of Brass in another one. So this kind of, I've got this character who I kind of maybe would like to come back to, who is one of these Red Portal wizards. So yeah, I really like them. I think any sort of means of allowing characters to move around great distances, but not just do it with a very easy teleport spell, where they've got to kind of go and find a portal, and then they maybe need a key, and then they need someone to, so they can do it, but it's a bit of work. A bit like traveling on the shadow roads along the ley lines. Same thing. You have to find some way of opening it up and doing it. Those things are really interesting. So yeah, red portals are definitely in the setting, but maybe not too much of a description about them, unfortunately.
Okay, then. Yeah, somebody in chat saying that they're yes to those stretch goals. I'm sure there will be plenty of stretch goals, which we can't announce yet. But you can be the first to know by signing up and getting in first on this Kickstarter, y'all. There's a link again, so you can make sure that you are there for that. We're in the last few minutes. I don't see any more questions in chat, though I see a lot of jokes and cheekiness. I see you, chat. I see you.
That's why I'm not looking at the chat, because
they're on fire today. Y'all are on fire today. Amanda says she could release them if she was a nice person, but I guess what Amanda's saying is she's not a nice person. She's a bug person. Well, as we close up today's chat, I want to thank everybody for being here. Richard, any last thoughts as we move towards literally, 4 or 5 days before this Kickstarter launches. Any last minute thoughts?
I would just say I'm really pleased at how it's turned out. It's been a lot of work over the last, I think, year and 3-4 months or something. And I'm still doing stuff. I've still got some other stretch goals I can't talk about and some maps to draw. But it's been the most exciting and fun project that I worked on. I really can't wait for people to read the books. So please do back the Kickstarter because you won't regret it.
There you have it from the writer, one of the writers. I'll drop that link one more time in chat for you to go sign up so that you can be the first to know. The 30th is the launch date for that. And in addition, I believe the 30th is the 30th is the closeout date for the current giveaway that we are doing, which is huge. I believe there's almost $300 worth of like content or like books and things in this, so you're not going to want to miss out on at least getting started with that. And I'm going to drop that for everybody one more time on the screen so you can see the full lineup. I believe Empire of Ghouls, which we just spoke about, is in there, along with like the Underworld Layers is in there, the Midgard Player Handbook, all kinds of things. One of the Tome of Beasts is in there, and the Creature Codex, the Pocket Edition, so like more stuff than you can shake a little kobold stick at. So make sure you get in on the giveaway before it is too late, because after the holidays, looks like it will be. And then last announcement. So I promised I would do this, so it looks like it's happening now. Y'all put me on the spot live. So next week we'll hang around after the Kobold chats, and I'll plan to stick around and actually build my character live using some of the new Jinborn content from the Kickstarter. That should be kind of fun. Y'all can help me build this kind of quirky soothsayer Jin lady as I work on that. And then on the 9th, right after our Kobold chats, we'll be sticking around for the premiere of the City of Cats 4-part mini campaign that we're going to be running through the month of December after every Kobold chat. So you'll want to stick around for that and not miss it. And if you do miss it, don't worry, we're going to have it up on the YouTube as well, so you'll have a second chance to put your eyes on that content before the Kickstarter closes out at the end of December. Chat, Amanda, am I missing anything? Yeah, oh yeah, Wolfgang's signing one of the books, right? He'll ruin one of the books for you by putting his signature in it. I feel like he's doing that as well. And Tome 2 is out, the Tome of Beast 2, which people seem really stoked about. I had a chance to dig into it, and there's some really killer stuff in that. And unless they're sold out, we actually have a limited edition leather bound that is available right now for that as well, which is active and on our store. So lots of ways to, one, support us, and lots of ways for you to get your hands on some of this incredible content that's come out this year. 2020 may be a bust, but it is not a bust over here at Kobold Press. We are not ending this year until we give you something amazing. So stick around. We'll see you here, same Kobold time, same Kobold channel, for our chat next week. Thanks for being with us, Richard. I appreciate you coming out and getting a chance to chat with you and meet you for the first time. So this has been really fun.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Until next time, I think we'll see you. We'll see you on the flip side. Bye, everybody.